All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to EMPM. That stands for Engineering Major Philosophy Minor. You guys know what's up. This is the channel where you can get a working aerospace engineer's opinions on topics pertaining to engineering, philosophy, politics, various other social and cultural issues. And before I get into the kind of engineering and philosophy topic, which is part 2 of my hashtag walk away, why I left the left story, I just want to describe to you quick what's going to be happening in this video in terms of the city. So we're working on the county of Citrus Valley again, and I have been updating these metro stations to avoid getting some of those blue lines where the metro tracks sink beneath the station in a weird way. And if you watched the last video and you were paying attention to the actual content that was going on the screen, you'd see that I really struggled with this particular metro station that I'm working on right now. And I couldn't figure out why, and I finally did right here, which is, and it's not perfect, but for some reason with these particular stations that are, they have like one side of the platform that's on one side of the road and then another side of the platform that's on the other side of the road with kind of like a view in thing. For some reason, they really don't like the road that has bike lanes on it. And as you can see, what I just did there was I changed the road to a road that did not have bike lanes, and then I was able to place it, albeit unfortunately not in the same exact location. So now I'm having to do some track work right here, but that's okay. Small price to pay for having those blue lines go away. So got that sorted out. And of course, going to be continuing updating these metro stations. This might be, I think, the last one that needs to get updated in this build. And then I start working on expanding the technical university, the Delta Polytechnic University, and we'll go from there. So all that stuff said, now I want to go ahead and get into part 2 of my little why I left the left thing. So let's go ahead and start reading that now. For those of you who did not watch part number 1, I've been likening my hashtag walkaway journey to a slow and steady march up to a summit shrouded by clouds. As I mentioned previously, I did not have a single defining moment. Rather, I was influenced by several things I encountered along the way. The first of which was a familiar exploration of climate change. However, the second event I'd like to share with you was a place I had never visited before, the South. I was not the kid who got to travel often as a child. I often had friends in elementary school, middle school, and high school who talked about their trips to Hawaii, camping in the Mountain West, or even traveling internationally. But in my case, my parents worked extremely hard just to maintain their spot in the neighborhood I grew up in and send me to a private school. I was often unnecessarily jealous of my friends who traveled, but in retrospect, I give my parents great appreciation for their ability to stay focused on the most important financial goals rather than a lavish lifestyle. My father worked 2 jobs, my mother worked part-time while raising me as an infant, and then full-time once I was old enough to go to school or spend time at my grandparents' over the summer. Between all that, there wasn't much time, let alone money, to travel. This lack of experience toward the world outside of California made me hungry for it. At my first job out of college, I volunteered for every potential business trip. One of these trips was a journey to the southern state of Alabama. This was about the 2014 to 2015 timeframe again. Along the way, I would stop in Texas for a layover, fly to the northwest end of Florida, and then drive into the eastern side of Alabama. Sometimes when one is hiking, a person might encounter some mental and physical obstacles. For example, not too long ago, I was looking to summit a local peak. The total hike distance was going to be around 10 miles with roughly 4,800 feet of elevation gain going up. This is a lot when you talk to a lot of people, but I felt confident I could do it. I made sure to have a nice breakfast, packed plenty of snacks, water, but did not pack electrolyte beverages. Unfortunately, the lack of electrolytes caused my legs to cramp brutally when I was only about 500 feet from the summit. My calves would lock up. When stretching them out, my quad would lock up. When stretching my quad, my hamstring would lock up. Meanwhile, I was walking on the edge of a significantly sloped face in regular running shoes, which was also a dumb idea, on coarse, slippery gravel. The desire to turn back and start walking downhill was strong, but stronger was my desire to summit, and so I did. I mention the encountering of obstacles and the will to push through because this trip to Alabama presented me with an odd obstacle. Would I encounter a racial confrontation? The conservatives watching this will either immediately start laughing or yelling at their screens. What the hell is this guy talking about? He's not even that dark. Both reactions are warranted. I was a worried young Californian lad in my early 20s who isn't that dark, convinced, as a result of my ignorance to the rest of the country, that I would have to deal with racial confrontation. I thought as if the South was this completely backward, racially uniform society where racial tensions were ubiquitous. It is unfortunate that I believed this because, having not ever been to the South at that time in my life, the only reason I could have believed this is a combination of education and upbringing with lack of any real-world experience or knowledge. I convinced myself that my emotions should be excitement rather than nervousness. Confrontation would be negative, but visiting new places, eating new food, and showing my company that I was a hardworking and capable engineer was easily more important. As I gazed out the window of my flight after entering Texas airspace, the first thing I noticed was the unignorable and massive freeway exchanges. Upon landing, the second thing I noticed was the palatial barbecue pits inside the Houston airport. Very good food, by the way. However, the most striking thing that I noticed upon making my way to the next gate was that no less than 50% of the people I encountered were black. Writing this out honestly makes me feel quite stupid. I had never seen so many black people in one place in my entire life, and this was a stark contrast to my expectation. Furthermore, I expected that there would be tension between a white majority and a black minority. Surely it could not be like California where everyone lives in harmony. I say that with air quotes. My expectations were completely shattered when I realized that all the interactions between people around me were perfectly pedestrian. People generally were minding their own business, no confrontation whatsoever, and behind the counter, those manning the registers and serving food were working together as a cohesive team without any notice to race or ethnicity. It was all just normal, human interaction in life. It was pleasing to have my expectations of the South immediately shut down before I even arrived at my final destination. But when I got to Alabama, I would have my expectation for racial tensions locked away and the key destroyed. Let me make an important point. I was in the southeast part of Alabama near the Gulf. I have been told by other friends who lived in Huntsville that racist organizations like the KKK are still alive and well in that community. I have no reason to doubt them, and it surely must be hurtful if there are people who wish to live in the Huntsville community who do not feel welcome. To those people, I can only say that there are thousands of other cities and communities who are welcoming to everyone across this country, and I suspect Huntsville might be the only place I have ever heard of which still has an active KKK following. Of course, if there is a listener to this and wants to leave a comment and correct me, feel free. But I did not encounter any of that where I was in Alabama. The area where I visited and worked in Alabama was not in any way discriminatory. Day by day, I would show up to a new restaurant for lunch or dinner and be catered to with the sweetest Southern hospitality. At the facility where I was performing my engineering duties, men and women of all ethnicities worked together to produce the very aerospace products that allow each of us to travel safe and sound to our destinations with tens of thousands of trips every day. I also had, hands down, the best turkey burger in my entire life at a resort in Mobile, Alabama. At this point, this was 6 or 7 years ago, and that still is the best turkey burger I have ever had. Delicious. Since that business trip, I have been to the South many times, and there are still so many places there which I would love to visit, but have not yet had the opportunity. However, that business trip taught me two very important lessons which contradicted my previously held and incorrect beliefs. Number one, the South in general is not racist. There may be a handful of individuals who are racist. However, it is rare to encounter those people. If you do encounter those people, it is also unlikely that interaction will result in a physical outburst from them. If there is no physical altercation, why do I care what random personal thoughts they harbor? And number two, Any time from then on I heard conservatives or Republicans referred to as racist simply for representing a southern state, I knew better than to simply believe what I was hearing on the media. All right, guys, that is the end of part 2, and that was a shorter one. The next one, I think, is probably going to be the longest of these 3 videos, but just to go back and give some commentary on that, I feel really bad about the way that I had people from the South portrayed in my head when I was younger, and I'm really glad that those sentiments were dispelled by this particular business trip. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go to Alabama again. I probably would have if I had stayed with that first company that sent me there, but I would have loved to go back. There was a lot of really cool stuff out there, a lot of good food, a lot of fun things to do. And I think one key takeaway, especially when we talk about some of the cultural tensions that are going on in our country now, is it's easy for people to develop on both sides. It's easy for people to develop kind of a caricature of, what they expect other people to behave like. And, the vast majority of us are, just completely normal people who have wonderful things about us. Some of us, all of us have certain flaws that we're working over. All of us might have bad thoughts every once in a while, but for the, significant majority of us, we don't put those bad thoughts into action. We just kind of move on from issues that we're having. And one thing that I want to highlight, though, that I have found is different between left and right, at least at the moment, and maybe I'm just not old enough to know what things were like before with conservatives, but right now there is a very big intolerance of people on the right from people on the left. I'll tell you guys another story. When I first moved out to Utah, I went to the shooting range, and was a great time. But I was buying ammo there, and I was asking the proprietor about what some of the rules are, and I said something along the lines of, is this or that against the law? And he looked at me and he was like, no, and his look was kind of like incredulous. And so I said, yeah, sorry, I'm from California and things are a lot different out there. He replied to me and he started laughing. And there was another guy kind of right next to me as well. They both started laughing, and he was like, oh, don't go saying California, that's a dirty word around here. And, we all start laughing. It was clearly a joke. And he was like, yeah, no problem. Here's your stuff, and, have fun. Welcome to Utah. Very, very welcoming. There was a stark contrast from, people I know in California when I started talking to them about conservative beliefs and ideas. I could tell that they were looking at me like I had just completely, lost the thread. And they were so curious why my beliefs were the way they were, and they just couldn't get over some of those roadblocks in their mind, which are things that I had to get over too, which is that, there is such thing as people who believe different things, and they don't believe these things for evil or nefarious reasons. It's just a different way of life. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off this one, and thank you for listening. Go ahead and leave a comment or share the video if you liked it. And again, I just want to give a shout out to people who are, in the military or engineers. If you're being affected by, certain mandates as of late, please give yourself a voice and start speaking up about it. Otherwise, we're just going to get run over, and, every single booster shot is going to be mandatory, and you're going to have to show your papers everywhere you go, and you just won't be able to participate in normal society. And you're not an evil person. It's just the way that other people view you that has been kind of ginned up by the media and the government at this point, which is really sad. Joe Biden says he wants to unite, and then he keeps doing things that divide. I really do want to unite. I want to show people that conservatives and even, many people who vote Democrat but wouldn't consider themselves, on the radical left, even though they vote for radical left policies, we're all just normal people trying to get by, and we need to be advocating for things to make it possible for all of us to do that, despite our opinions. So anyway, catch you guys in the next one. Later.